Imagine a book that was never meant to be read. Its pages bloom with impossible plants, its margins swirl with stars no sky has ever known, its waters cradle women who never die. For 5 centuries, it has mocked us, priests, kings, and codebreakers alike. They call it the Voynich Manuscript. But perhaps, darklings, it is not a book at all. Perhaps it is a spell, a trap, a mirror of madness waiting for the one who dares to read too far. And to understand how this trial began, we must return to the moment it first emerged from the shadows into the hands of a man who did not yet know what curse he carried. The year was 1912. In the crumbling corridors of a Jesuit villa outside Rome, a man named Wilfred Voynich wandered among shelves that smelled of mildew and candle smoke. He was a collector, a seeker of forgotten books, always searching for treasures that others overlooked. On that day, he opened a locked chest. Inside, bound in leather, wrapped in centuries of silence, lay a manuscript unlike any he had ever seen. The parchment was thick, heavy, worn by age, yet strangely intact. He turned the first page and the letters stared back at him. They were not Latin nor Greek nor Hebrew, not the ciphers of monks nor the tongues of merchants. No one had ever spoken them. No one could. He turned another page. Strange plants bloomed in impossible shapes, roots twisting like veins, leaves curling into spirals unknown to nature. Another page, women, dozens of them, naked, immersed in green pools flowing through pipes like streams of life. Another page, stars drawn in circles, as if charting a sky not our own. Voynich's pulse quickened. He had found something no one could name. A book both priceless and cursed words, without meaning, images, without origin. He carried it from the villa, not knowing the weight of the silence.
This is impossible.
For in his hands was not just parchment, but a question that would outlive him. Who wrote this, and why? He showed it to scholars. They shook their heads. He carried it to priests. They crossed themselves. He sent it to cryptographers. They broke themselves against its walls. Even the greatest code breakers of the 20th century, men
and
who
here you see,
unraveled the Nazi
it details
enigma,
the secret
could
history
not
of the
pierce its
cosmos.
veil. And the book
I do
watched
not
them
see
all.
that.
Page after page, it offered symbols without answers, beauty without meaning.
I
It
am sure there is
devoured
an easier
every
way
theory,
to do this.
We've been at this
every
for hours. There has to be.
hypothesis.
I am going to
Every
lose
hope.
my mind.
Some whispered that it was the work of a madman, inventing a language no one would ever understand. Others believed it was a hoax, an elaborate riddle to mock the curious. And a few feared it was something else, a transmission, a message, a mirror, held up not to us, but to something
book
beyond us.
is the work
5
of a
centuries after its
madman.
birth, the Voynich Manuscript still breathes in
This
silence.
is clearly a forgery.
A language without
But what
a
if
people.
it's not?
A
It's
book
cursed,
without
I
a
tell
reader.
you.
A curse without a cure. But the Voynich is not alone, darklings. Across cultures, across centuries, other books have whispered in the same shadowed tongue. To understand this one, we must look at the others that came before it. The Voynich Manuscript is not the only voice that whispers from the margins of history. Across continents and centuries, other texts have carried the same shadow books that speak in riddles, binding knowledge in codes and symbols meant only for the few. Consider the Papyrus Ebers, an Egyptian medical scroll over 3,000 years old. Its long columns of faded hieratic script list remedies, incantations, and rituals to drive away unseen spirits. Here medicine is fused with magic healing, with prayer. Much like the Voynich, the Papyrus Ebers is not just a manual of herbs, but a doorway into a world view where sickness was never only of the body, but of the soul. Then there is the Zohar, the mystical book of Kabbalah. It was never meant for every eye. Only those initiated into its secret tradition were permitted to read, and even they did so layer by layer, deciphering allegories and hidden codes. Like the Voynich, the Zohar does not simply communicate, it conceals. It wraps truth in shadows, revealing only to those prepared to see. In the East, ancient Chinese herbals offer another reflection. Painted on silk, their plants curl into strange symbolic forms, each leaf carrying both medicinal power and cosmic meaning. In this system, the human body was a miniature universe, and herbs were keys to balance the heavens within. The Voynich's surreal plants, twisted roots, spiraling leaves, blossoms that do not exist in nature, may be doing the same. They might be symbols, not botany metaphors, for a lost science or a vision of life unknown to us. And in medieval Europe, the secret books of alchemy blurred the boundaries of science, faith, and art. Their pages are filled with impossible images. The sun wedded to the moon, angels tending furnaces, metals, dissolving into radiant crystals. These were not literal diagrams. They were riddles designed to hide the transformation of matter and the soul. The star charts of the Voynich circles, spiral zodiac signs recall these traditions. They are maps not of the sky above, but of the inner heavens hidden from ordinary sight. Every culture has left behind texts that were never meant for the crowd. The Papyrus Ebers spoke only to priests and healers. The Zohar whispered only to mystics. The Chinese herbals spoke to doctors of both body and cosmos. The alchemical treatises revealed themselves only to the initiated. But the Voynich stands apart. It has no teachers, no disciples, no living tradition behind it. It exists in silence. Pages filled with a language without a people, images without a reference, meaning without an anchor, voice lowers, fading towards science. And so while cultures gave us echoes, science demanded proof. Carbon dating, ink analysis, artificial intelligence, all turned their gaze upon the Voynich. And yet, every test, every machine, every algorithm returned the same unsettling answer: nothing. Science does not believe in mysteries. It believes in evidence. And so, when the Voynich Manuscript emerged, scholars turned immediately to the tools of proof. The first question was simple: is it real? Carbon dating answered.
What is this new information?
The parchment was genuine, made from calf skin between 1404 and 1438. Not a modern forgery. Not a hoax of the 20th century. Its ink, too, belonged to that age. The Voynich was born in the late medieval world. But what of its words? Linguists measured the frequency of symbols, the way certain characters clustered, the rhythm of its spaces. Strangely, it behaved like language. Not gibberish, not random, not the meaningless scratches of a forger. Each page carried the statistical fingerprint of human speech, and yet no one could read a single word. Cryptographers pored over it. Some thought it was a cipher, a code hiding Latin or Italian beneath. Others believed it was shorthand or even glossolalia language spoken in trance,
it's a known variant,
dictated by something not human. World War II. Broke codes, thought unbreakable. The enigma fell to human persistence and machine calculation. But when the same minds turned their gaze on the Voynich, they found only silence. Every method failed. In our century, artificial intelligence has scanned it, modeled it, compared its structure to hundreds of tongues. Algorithms have whispered that it might resemble Hebrew or perhaps Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs. But whispers are not answers. No translation has survived scrutiny. The Voynich remains mute. Even its drawings resist certainty. Botanists cataloged every plant hoping to match leaves and stems to species. But each seemed familiar and unfamiliar at once, like dreams of herbs rather than herbs themselves. Astronomers examined the star charts, zodiac signs, twisted moons and suns in strange alignment. Were they symbols of the heavens or maps of a cosmos entirely imagined? Some scientists retreated, calling it a hoax. They pointed to medieval tricksters who might have invented it to sell to a curious patron. But why, then, does it behave so much like real language? Why would a hoaxer invent a system so complex, one that continues to confound computers 600 years later? Others believe it is a lost knowledge, written in a tongue no longer spoken, a language whose people vanished, leaving only these pages as their tombstone. And some whisper it is not human at all. A transmission encoded in a script designed for no eye of ours. The verdict of science is paradox. The parchment is real, the ink is real, the language is structured. But meaning remains beyond reach. Voice lowers, pulling us into the next page. And so we are left not with answers, but with symbols. The Voynich offers its roots, its women, its star, as if begging us to see beyond science into the world of metaphor. If the words of the Voynich will not yield, then perhaps its images can speak. For the manuscript does not whisper in letters alone. It breathes in drawings, hundreds of them, woven into the margins like echoes of another world. The plants come first. Page after page, roots twist like veins pulled from the earth stems, coil in spirals too precise for nature. Blossoms bloom into impossible forms. Some resemble known herbs, but only halfway, as if memory itself had warped them. Scholars tried to match them to the flora of Eurasia, even the New World. None fit. They are almost real, and yet not. Perhaps they are metaphors, plants of the
This plant
spirit,
from the New
medicines
World
of a
is
soul
truly
instead of
fascinating.
a body.
Its structure
A
is
hidden
unlike anything I have
pharmacopoeia
seen
for
before.
illnesses we cannot name. Then the women. Dozens drawn naked, fragile, immersed in green pools. They hold pipes and channels flowing like rivers of life. Some appear to be born from the water itself, others sinking into it. Their faces are plain, almost identical, as if identity did not matter. What are they? Ritual bathers? Mothers of life, souls passing between worlds. The images suggest fertility rebirth. The cycles of blood and water that bind our flesh. But they also suggest something stranger, that the water itself is a vessel. And water is not just water, but the current of existence. Turn further and the stars appear. Constellations swirl in circles, zodiacs twist into unrecognizable forms, suns and moons overlap as though caught in an eternal eclipse. Some charts resemble medieval astrology, but with distortions like reflections in broken glass. Perhaps they were calendars of forgotten rituals or maps not of the heavens above, but of hidden realms beyond sight. To those who drew them, the stars may not have been distant fires, but doors. Taken together, these images weave a silent philosophy. Plants, women, stars. Root, body, sky. 3 levels of existence, earth, flesh, and heaven, bound together in an unknown language of symbols. The Voynich may not describe medicine, but initiation. Not healing, but transformation. Every image resists clarity, yet insists on meaning. It is as if the manuscript was painted not for explanation, but for meditation, forcing the reader to contemplate, to wander, to lose themselves in the labyrinth of symbol. Some scholars argue that the Voynich is simply nonsense. But nonsense does not hold this power. Nonsense does not invite centuries of searching. Only symbols can do that because they are not meant to be solved, but to be lived with, wrestled with, feared. Perhaps the Voynich is not a book of instructions, but of mirrors. Each plant, each woman, each star reflects something we already know, but have forgotten. It does not give answers, it gives questions. And in doing so, it turns the reader into the text. Voice lowers, drawing us toward philosophy. For what if the manuscript was never meant to reveal its secrets, but to show us something about ourselves? What if the real code lies not in its pages, but in the hunger it awakens within us? What if the Voynich Manuscript was never meant to be solved? What if its power lies not in what it tells us, but in what it withholds? For centuries we have approached it as a puzzle, a cipher to be broken, a code to be cracked. Yet what if it is something else entirely? A mirror, a trial, a riddle designed not for understanding, but for testing. Knowledge, after all, is never neutral. It is both gift and burden. In ancient myths, fire was stolen from the gods, only to bring both light and ruin. Forbidden fruit granted sight, but cost paradise. The Voynich may be another such fire dangling just beyond our grasp, tempting us to reach, reminding us that every secret comes with a price. Perhaps its language is not meant for us. Perhaps it belongs to a people long vanished, or to a mind that does not think as we do. Or perhaps it was never meant for human eyes at all. Imagine a book written in a tongue we cannot hear, left here like driftwood from another shore of time. In trying to read it, we are like ants crawling across a tapestry, seeing only threads, never the design. But the manuscript does something deeper. It awakens hunger. Every scholar who has touched it has been changed, consumed, drawn into its silence. The failure is part of the lesson. It tells us that not every question yields an answer. That some mysteries exist not to be solved, but to remind us of our limits. And what is philosophy, if not a confrontation with limits? The Voynich, in its mute defiance, forces us to confront the boundaries of language, of science, of the human mind itself. It whispers that our need to explain is as much a weakness as a strength. Yet perhaps there is another possibility. What if the Voynich is not a failure of comprehension, but a challenge to perception? Its symbols may not demand translation, but meditation. To sit with its plants, its women, its stars, and let them work upon us, not as words to be read, but as images to be lived. In this way, it becomes less a book and more a ritual, a sacred object whose purpose is not to speak, but to transform. And so we are left with a paradox. The Voynich Manuscript may contain no message at all, or it may contain the most important message of all, that knowledge is never guaranteed, that meaning is never certain, that the unknown is as much a teacher as the known. Voice lowers, pulling us into the silence before the end. Perhaps its true secret is this, that our obsession with understanding blinds us to the wisdom of mystery. That to live with the unanswered is itself a kind of initiation. So we arrive at the silence. 5 centuries, hundreds of scholars, the best machines of our age, and still the Voynich Manuscript refuses to speak. It remains a book without a reader, a language without a people, a question without an answer. Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps it was never written for us. The plants that grow from no soil we know. The women who bathe in waters that flow through no land on earth. The stars that turn in patterns unknown to our skies. Together they whisper of another world, one that brushed against ours for a moment, leaving behind only this fragment, this trace, this shadow. If so, then the Voynich is not a hoax, nor a riddle, nor a mistake. It is a survival, a relic of minds we cannot meet, a signal cast forward or backward through time. And so the question lingers, whose hands wrote it? Were they human, long forgotten, their tongue erased from history? Were they visionaries, seeing what no one else could see? Or were they something other messengers, who never intended their words for us, but for another kind of reader altogether? Science cannot answer. Faith cannot answer. Even the manuscript itself will not answer. Voice lowers to a whisper, slow and chilling. So the book waits. It waits in silence, patient as stone, as if knowing that someday its reader will come. Not you, not me, perhaps not even anyone alive today. But one day the Voynich will be read. And when that day comes, we may discover that the mystery was not about the book at all, but about us.